Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Inside Scoop, the podcast where I give you an inside look into some of the most interesting people I come across. I am your host, Christina, and today we have with us the lovely, the amazing Sarah. Sarah, who I met at a birthday party 2 months ago, I want to say. And when I met her, I thought she was so freaking cool. I was like, I have to have her on my podcast before I even launched this podcast. So this has been a long time coming. Sarah is a software engineer through and through, and you'll know what I mean when we get into the podcast. She's also from Germany, and she does pole dancing. This girl is so freaking talented. So in today's episode, we talk a lot about her background in Germany, the difficulties of moving here to America and adjusting to American culture. We also talk about the stigma behind pole dancing and like getting into pole dancing, what it takes. And lastly, we talk about her background in software engineering and how she got into the field. Before we begin, if you're listening to this on Spotify, please give the show a 5-star if you enjoyed the episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when the next episode drops. And with that being said, let's get started. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Want to say thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Definitely.
I just thought you were so interesting when I met you at Luke's birthday party, so I was like, I have to have her on my podcast.
Aw,
but
thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned that you listen to a couple of my podcasts, and so you should know that some of them, they always start with the trivia questions.
Right.
And the trivia is always tailored to the guest, so I was trying really hard to remember like the things that we talked about at Luke's birthday party. Mm-hmm. So hopefully these are kind of easy. Hopefully these are easy. Hopefully you get them. But I don't know.
I'm so bad at trivia, so we're gonna go down.
Okay, well, yeah, these might be kind of niche, so I don't know. Okay, so the first one is I remember you like mentioned that you were from Germany, right?
Yeah.
So first two are about Germany.
Okay.
Which castle was the inspiration for the Disney castle?
Oh, I've been to this castle. What the hell is it called, though? I know this castle. I've been to it. I have no idea the name anymore.
It's okay. I'm totally gonna butcher this, but it's Neuschwanstein.
Nice.
Right? Oh my god.
That was pretty good.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like so nervous because I feel like the German accent is so hard to like nail down.
It's pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this one is a multiple choice question. Mm-hmm. Which candy company was founded in Germany? A. Ferrero Rocher, B. Hershey's, or C. Haribo?
Haribo.
Oh yeah, so you got that so fast.
In Germany, we have like gummy stores everywhere.
Oh.
It's like very German, so we know.
Is like gummies like a German thing? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we own the gummies. We know this one.
I was so like intrigued when I found this out because I was like, it sounds so like Japanese, but surprising that it's from Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I remember like during our conversation at Luke's birthday party, you mentioned that you were like really into like Japanese culture. So the next two are about Japan.
Okay.
Okay, so there's this legend that if you fold 1,000 origamis of this, you would get a wish.
Yes, that's true.
What is this? What is the 1,000 things that you have to fold?
Cranes.
Yes.
Yes.
I actually tried doing that as a kid, and I think I gave up after like 100.
Wow, that's impressive though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I guess. It's like a 10th. Okay. Which Japanese island is famous for its snow-capped mountains and hot springs?
Hokkaido?
Ah, yeah.
Damn,
Nice.
what is this? What is this day? What?
See, you are really good at trivia.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and this one is just a random one about pole dancing.
Okay.
True or false, pole dancing originated from Chinese pole.
Kind of.
Yes.
It originated from India, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, Google told me it was Chinese pole, but...
It could, I think they did it at the same time-ish.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so there is a very old traditional Chinese pole and Indian pole.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was like, that's interesting. I found like another interesting fact was that this was pole dancing was originally performed by men,
Yes.
which I was like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, we can get more into that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was all the trivia. I feel like you got all of them except for the first one, I think.
Dang,
Yeah, that was
what?
good.
All right, new confidence.
Okay, so before we begin, I should have told you this earlier, but I'd like you to, like, I guess, introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sarah. I recently moved to New York City. I'm a pole dancer. I've competed regionally and nationally and won medal and twice in doubles.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, cool. So since you started with pole dancing, I guess we could start with pole dancing. I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get into pole dancing?
Yeah, so the way I got into pole dancing is I've always been kind of like not very physical. So like, you know, I'm a software engineer. Like I did that as a kid for a hobby. So
wait, you did software engineering as a kid?
Yeah,
as a hobby?
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I have to remember this for later. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't really use my body too much. Then when I got into like my mid to late 20s, I was like, wow, I really should, you know, do something with my body. I'm getting older. So I really was turned off by like lifting weights. It just seems so mundane and boring. So I was like, maybe a good way to, you know, get into it is like dance. And I had a friend who showed me a YouTube video of a pole dancer, and she was just absolutely incredible. Like it was pretty funny because like she had a pole installed outdoors under her deck, and she just like takes this massive bong rip, and then she just like goes for it, and she was just like really expressive. You can kind of tell she's probably freestyling. And I was like, wow, like the freedom and artistic expression to do that. And I was like, wow, I want that, you know? So I signed up for a pole class, and the warm-up was too hard for me.
It looks really hard.
The warm-up was way too hard for me because like I'm completely out of shape, you know. So I went a couple times and I was like, man, I'm just way too weak for this. So then that's how I got into weightlifting. Did that for a couple years on and off, and then I came back to pole in late 2020.
Oh wow, so it was like super, super recent.
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, so I had like so many questions while you're telling your story. I guess the first one, you did mention that like when you first tried it, you were like too weak for it. So you went into like lifting and stuff. So as someone who has never done pole before, it looks really, really hard, but I really want to try. And I do lift a lot. So I feel like, okay, so the thing is like sometimes because I lift so much, I have this idea that like I'm probably going to be good at like everything, but I don't think I will be when it comes to like
I can understand
pole,
that
you know?
feeling, yeah.
So I guess like all of that to ask, like what do you think are some like basic exercises that someone should nail down before you get into pole?
So I even though my journey involved like putting pole down and focusing on building strength somewhere else, that's not necessarily the way you have to do it.
Okay.
I would say that the cross training helps a lot. But I would say that pole dancing is very upper body heavy. So I think some people mistaken it and think that it's like very leggy, which you do use your whole body, but just to simply be able to climb the pole, that's a pull-up.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, God.
And there's not, the average person, maybe males can like, you know, push out a pull-up or two, but women is much harder for us because, you know, just our bodies. So I would say focus on trying to build upper body strength, and you can get there with like cross-training, kind of like you work out of the gym. I would say someone like you probably does have that advantage over someone who doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. That's, oh, sorry. That's interesting because I always thought like pole dancing used a lot of like your core.
It does.
Okay, so it's like core and upper body.
It's total body.
Okay.
But I would say the upper body is the heaviest group.
Interesting. So I would not be good at pole because even though I lift a lot, I feel like I like my upper body is so weak. How did it feel like starting pole? Like how does it feel the difference between like now and like back then?
Oh my gosh, like this is a very good question. So I think that with pole dancing, there's so many things that you have to deal with and accept that you may not expect, or maybe you totally expect. So with pole, you don't have a lot of clothes on you because it's not really helpful to unless you're doing like Chinese pole where there's like a wrap on it.
Okay.
But you have to get used to wearing so little clothes, you know, being comfortable with your body. You also have to be comfortable failing in front of other people. That is if you're going to a class.
Yeah.
And the strength thing is obvious. So I feel like those three things are like pretty big, especially like the first two, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe, you know, as someone who lifts, like, you know, if you are like not able to do as many reps as you were the other day and you get really hard on yourself, then there's overtraining involved.
Yeah.
So I would say that there's a lot of like difficult things to get past. And that really depends on like what kind of person you are. If you tend to think like, you know, you're more forgiving to yourself or whatever. So.
Okay. So speaking of like difficult things to get past, like how was it like with I guess like I know like pole dancing has a lot of like stigma around it.
Yeah.
So what was it like entering pole dancing with that stigma and like telling people? I feel like would be personally for me, telling someone because of those stigmas would be like a hard part for me. So like how did you feel with like that stigma and like getting into pole?
Yeah, that's actually very valid. I think that that's really a big thing for a lot of people who get into pole dancing. For me, like, I think that I was primed pretty good because I'm also a very heavily tattooed person. So I'm kind of already used to kind of being like
Stared at?
Or, you know, I actually get really good reaction from people, so I never really get bad reaction. But I'm sure that there's people who judge, and some people, some dancers, that really gets to them, especially if they have like a very conservative background and such. And there's like, you'll obviously deal with people who want to make like lewd comments and stuff like that, especially in dating. You know?
Oh yeah, I imagine it must be really hard to tell someone you're dating. I mean, not hard, but it'd probably be like an interesting conversation to tell someone that you're dating, that you're in pole dancing.
You'll often get like the same like lines because like people's like minds go to the same place, and so they'll like drop the same like pickup lines and stuff, which is just a complete turn off. But like in regards to like, let's say my parents, I think that like that's probably, you know, work and parents is probably like the people that people are most nervous about finding out. It's funny story for me because so I'm Asian, so like specifically Korean, we don't really like tattoos at all. So my parents didn't even know I was heavily tattooed at all.
What?
I hid it from them. Girl, I hid it.
Oh my god.
And then so I was showing my brother my pole dancing because I'm pretty close with them, and plus he's been in fitness, so like I think all athletes can appreciate each other. And then I eventually got so good that he was like, I have to show this to mom and dad. And so he just sent them the video.
Oh my god, of you pole dancing?
Yes. And so they found out I was heavily tattooed and they already knew I was pole dancing, but they saw my pole dancing for the first time. And I guess they were like so impressed that they didn't care about the tattoos. Wow, okay. But now my mom, even though they found out for like a year or maybe 2 years, I don't know, my mom will still tell me almost every time I see her, you think you have enough tattoos? Oh my god. I'll be like, yeah, I think I have enough.
Oh my god. That's so funny that like her main concern is the tattoos and like not the pole dancing.
No, it's not. She thinks it's pretty amazing. Actually, my family are always like, oh, it looks like some Cirque du Soleil stuff, you know? So they see it more as like a circus act or like a performance. They don't see it like in a lewd way or something.
Okay. Does that bother you? Like, do you personally see pole dancing as like very sporty, something to like work on your fitness, while like they see it as a performance? Like, does that disconnect bother you, or is it like, are you okay with that?
No, they definitely go hand in hand because I think for me, pole dancing, like it is about like, you know, doing something for myself, like my health and stuff. But probably the main thing is putting on a performance, because as I said, whenever I first saw that YouTube video of the pole dancer inspired me, what struck me the most was like her being able to express herself through dance. And that's kind of that's the main thing for me as well. So when I performed in the past for audience, like it was really cool because when we performed at regionals, we had a standing ovation, and it really touched me that the audience felt something from the performance, and that is by far like the biggest like satisfaction from dancing. Yeah.
Do you feel like is this like your primary way of like expressing yourself?
I would say that the way that I've expressed myself has changed like throughout my life. So originally, like, you know, I played piano and guitar and like have done various types of arts, but I would say it's pretty important to me to not identify myself with anything particular. So I don't think of myself like I am a pole dancer and that's what I am, you know? I consider it more like, you know, this is what I'm doing right now and I really enjoy it. Kind of like in the past when I was very big into piano. And for a while there, I thought that was a part of my identity. And then as I wanted to grow away from piano, because we go through like phases in our life, right? It kind of like I kind of struggled with that, and then I realized like that's okay. So it's not like a deep part of my identity, I would say.
I like the way that you put it, how you say you don't say that you are a pole dancer, but you pole dance, because I feel like when you transition, it's so much easier. Because like a lot of people tie their identities to like their hobbies or their job, and so like when you put it that way, it makes it a lot easier to be like a multifaceted person, which I love.
And it's totally okay to like put hobbies down or interests down and move on to something else. Like you can always go back to it.
And you don't have to be like good at it too. I feel like nowadays like people like there's this like idea or like this drive to like monetize everything that you do, which takes like the passion and like the fun out of everything, and it's like
and I'm very careful about that with pole dancing. So I don't think I mentioned it out loud yet, but I competed in doubles, so 2 dancers on 1 pole, and so it was a discussion between her and I. We were like, do we open a TikTok? Like, do we promote ourselves? And then we decided, no, let's not do that. Let's let this be art. So we very intentionally don't try to push like our content and promote it, because like it's not about that.
I love that. It's like something for yourself, you know, and if other people enjoy it, then they can come watch. If not, then, no, I love that. Okay, one last question though. Do you feel like pole dancing connects you to your feminine side much more? Because like personally, as someone who lifts a lot, I feel so like masculine, like at the gym, and I'm like lifting weights, and I just feel like sometimes I just feel so like a guy. Not like a guy, but it's like I feel like weightlifting is such like a masculine thing, and like pole dancing I assume feels like would be a little bit more feminine. So do you feel like you're connecting to like your feminine side better, or like have you always had I don't know.
I think that's
thoughts on that?
That's a good question. So you're familiar with feminine and masculine energy, and it's like I would say that my energy is very masculine. Like I think that I'm very feminine presenting, but like I'm actually like a very masculine person, to the point that I think that other men and women pick up on that.
Oh, really?
So I think that pole did connect me to my feminine side. And I really appreciate that, but I also think that it's still like, because of the strength involved, like the training to get there, like also feels masculine too. So I think
interesting.
I think through pole dancing and like everything that I've learned and how I've developed as an individual, I think that I probably was less comfortable with like the feminine, and did help me balance out. But I would say I am still a person who's very close to my masculine energy.
Interesting. So I don't get that from you.
Really?
I feel like I'm very masculine.
Really?
And like the way I think, and like how I act, and like the way I dress, I feel like I just present, and like I think not like super masculine, but like more so masculine than feminine. So I don't get that from you. So I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. But, in terms of like, you know, I'm like a pretty girly girl physically, but like energy wise, the way I think, and it's very masculine. Like too much probably.
Is that something that like you want to not like work on, but something you want to like learn how to balance more?
You know, I'm not sure, because it's like I would say that it kind of causes issues between me having like intimate relationships with men, for instance, because like, you know, they need to respect my masculine energy as well, and figure out what else they can offer me.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, this just brought something to light. So I think the reason why you don't feel totally masculine to me is because rather than like masculine energy that I feel from you, it's more so like you're very sure of who you are and like what you do, and like maybe other people will take that as masculine, but to me it's just more like you know who you are, and I guess like you won't take bullshit for that. And you bringing up the relationship thing and how guys can't handle that brought that to me.
As someone who, you know, you described yourself as like you think you're connected to your masculine energy, does any of that resonate with you? I
feel like it, because I feel like in terms of like dating at least, it's really hard to find someone who is accepting of how independent I am. Like I'm very much like I don't need, because I can take care of myself, right? So like you said, it's like what you can offer me, and it's like it's not like the traditional like what I need from you, because I can give that to myself, right? So I guess I do like feel the same thing.
It's hard out there.
No, it's really, I feel like it's especially hard in New York, because I don't know. I don't even know why it's especially hard in New York. It's just like especially hard dating in New York.
Yeah, I actually like haven't done like any dating since I've been here. Like it's really not a high priority for me at all.
Same, yeah.
And honestly, like I don't even go on the apps or anything. I just figured that if it were to happen, then I suppose it'll happen.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah.
Maybe that just comes with being someone who's very independent and I guess in their masculine energy is like dating has never ever like in my whole life ever been a priority for me.
Yeah.
And like the only time I've ever dated was like if it just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And did you find whenever it just happened, like, were those like good experiences or?
Yeah, I think they were really good experiences.
Nice.
And like, I guess because it wasn't like forced, right? From like an app where you're intentionally seeking out a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's more like supernatural. It was like friends of friends or whatever, so. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole like dating thing is like dating app thing is pretty weird. It's just like so much time investment just trying to figure out like, do I want to get to know you? But anyways, it's not worth my time.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about dating. We're not going to talk about dating.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I answered all my questions about pole dancing. So the next I wanted to get into was like you mentioned that you're American born abroad.
Yeah.
In Germany, as you mentioned earlier in this podcast. So I guess my first question was like, what was life like over there in terms of like, okay, that's a really broad question, sorry. Narrow it down let me narrow it down a little bit. So I guess like the first thing was like, what was like, how do I word this? Like individual mindset in terms of like, okay, let me just give you an example.
Yeah.
So I guess here in America, I feel like people are very like individualistic, mm-hmm. right? As opposed to like, because I'm Chinese American, mm-hmm. and like in China, people it's all about the community, right? And so I guess like the community culture and mindset, those are like the differences. So I was wondering like if there was a difference from here and like Germany.
Definitely. Germany is I think more similar to like Asians in that way, and I think that's why they're kind of famously efficient, because everyone is aware of like the social expectations, and everyone wants things to run well because they understand that if we're united, then
it works faster.
It works better, faster, yeah. So definitely the German mentality is quite different from American mentality, and they're also distinct from other surrounding European countries as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like German mentality is better or American mentality is better?
It's so interesting because at this point, I've moved away from Germany quite a while ago, so I think that some of what I'm saying is kind of dated too. But I would say that when I first came to here on the East Coast, I really did not vibe with Americans. And I really wanted to go back to Europe really bad for a long time. Like I just couldn't get along with American people. But I think as time has gone by, and it also probably changes as like I spend more time in cities in America. Like America's so big, and like each region like presents different cultures, so it's kind of hard to generalize. Yeah. So specifically for the East Coast, like as time has gone by, I've grown like a pretty big appreciation for Americans. Because I think that we're just addressing like a lot of difficult social issues that just kind of like allows inclusivity that you won't get in other countries. So as much as like we like to like say Americans are negative, this and that, I actually see a lot of the positive in Americans these days. And funny because, you know, I said Germans are efficient and everything, but I noticed like the German tourists here seem so lost.
Really?
And I was on Reddit, on like the NYC like subreddit, and they said the same thing. I was like, what's going on with that?
That's so funny.
Because I don't know Germans to be like all lost and confused and being like, you know?
But don't you think that's like normal for someone that's like out of your country, so it's like out of your element?
It's so true. It's probably just that. Yeah. But I've seen it so much, specifically with Germans here. I was like, what is this?
So funny. You're like, this is not right.
This is not what I'm used to.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned specifically adjusting to the East Coast, right? Have you been to like other parts of America, and did you feel like it was easier to adjust in those areas?
I've been to a lot of different places in America. For a while, I really enjoyed the West Coast.
Oh, yeah, where I'm from, I love it.
Oh, are you from the West Coast?
Yeah, from LA.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like pretty obsessed with like, California for a while, and I spent quite a bit of time over there. But like interestingly, like I've grown to really appreciate the East Coast now at this point.
Really?
Yeah, because like I guess back then, whenever I was fresher from Europe, yeah, I did like West Coast more, but now not anymore.
Why do you think that is? Like, what is it about the West Coast? I guess, what is it about the West Coast that you liked better as a fresh from Europe person?
So I would say, I think it would be easier to describe my issue with the East Coast people first. And I noticed that in the East Coast, we pretty famously say like it is like a little more rough here. Like people are more aggressive. You can get taken advantage of very easily. And I really was not used to that.
Interesting.
So I feel like I got taken advantage of a lot when I first came here. And I think that that's what I was so like adverse against. Because I think it was also like I didn't really understand. I've never been exposed to like this kind of people. So I didn't have any experience or like smarts to know how to deal with that. Yeah, so I got taken advantage of a lot on the East Coast when I first came here. And that's why I like the West Coast better. And it was like prettier there. Like they have better landscape.
Definitely.
Oh my God.
The views over there are so much prettier.
I know.
That's so funny. So do you feel like moving over here to the East Coast made you just more of like skeptical of people?
For a while it was, and I would like kind of became very introverted and like kind of scared of like American people. Honestly.
That's so funny.
Because I didn't know how to deal with it, but as time went on, and I did like a lot of self-work, now I don't really have that problem. Like I know how to not accept this kind of negative people into my life. And I think after that, then I started noticing, I was like, oh, I kind of really like the no bullshit, like, attitude of East Coast people, like specifically New York. I'm going to use it for an example. Like, I think New York people are very kind.
Yeah, they really are.
Very kind.
Yeah.
It's like a different, they said like, I've heard it described as niceness versus kindness.
Yes.
And I've heard like, Midwest people or Southern people described as nice, but New York people described as kind. Yeah. And I really understand that.
Difference.
Yeah.
When I first moved here and my friends visited me, they were like, New Yorkers are so mean. But I was like, I really don't think they are.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people are just like, maybe people are just like not used to like the bluntness of like people, but that's like something that I really appreciate because like I don't have time for your shit. Like just tell it to me straight up. Tell me what you're trying to tell me. Like I hate when people like beat around the bush.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just tell me, like, I can take it.
And I'm kind of like that person too. Like, I mentioned earlier that like I'm a software engineer, so like my brain is very much so that. Like I'm not a kind of person where I was like, oh, I wonder what I should do with my life. I guess I'll do this. It was like I'm naturally like an engineer brain, so East Coast works with me so perfectly because I don't have to do any of like this polite talk or anything.
Oh my God, I have to do that for work, and I'm just like, can I just tell you what I'm trying to say? Like, I hate because like I work in advertising, so like I do like a lot of like corporate speaking and like corporate vocab, and I just want to tell you that this sucks, you know? Like, please.
I feel you on that for sure. Yeah.
What did you feel were like the biggest differences between here and Germany? That's pretty broad question.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot of differences. Like I would say the first start is how towns and cities are organized here.
Oh, interesting. So how are they organized over there?
Yeah, so when I first came to the East Coast, I lived in a suburb, so that's what I'm going to compare it to. So even in the suburbs in Europe, it's still formatted more like businesses and residential together, right?
Okay.
So like in the suburbs in America, like your commercial stuff does not get mixed into your housing, which is why we have to drive everywhere, right? Well, in Europe, even in a smaller town, like you have your city square, like, businesses are pebbled into the residential. Then we also have public transit. Which is the other thing, right?
Yes.
So, of course, public transit is not as good if you're, like, in a more rural area, but you can still take a bus to get to the train to get to the main system of public transit. So that right there alone was so crippling to me because you can't drive until you're 18 in Germany, and I moved to America right before I turned 18.
Oh no.
So I was stuck like Chuck in the suburbs.
Oh my god. That sounds terrible.
And it was like not even close at all to so I lived in a suburb outside of Baltimore. It was like 40 or 30 minutes out, but there's no bus to even like hop onto any transit to get you anywhere. So that right there was probably the biggest. And then the other thing is food quality. Food quality was really bad, in America compared to like in Europe. And I know people, like some people complain about food in Europe, but America's is pretty bad.
I can imagine. I mean, I've never been to Europe actually, but yeah, I can imagine how like. I mean, I guess like here, a lot of people say like the food quality here is much worse. Like a lot of like genetically modified, and like I guess institutions not like as strict in like what they put into your food, right?
But not only that, it is that for sure. But like even like a step down from that, it's like you go into maybe not so much New York, but at least in like a lot of suburbs in America, you go to the grocery store and the produce is rotten.
Oh yeah.
On the shelf.
Yeah.
What?
That's crazy. I was like, you're selling this?
What? So, but you're absolutely right. Like with the other like things are more transparent, and like you're not even allowed to use like pesticides and stuff that are legal here in America. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of like Germans, like my friends, like if they've left Germany, first thing they complain about is like transit and food.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I've always wondered like if I moved to like Europe or like Asia for like a short amount, like a long but short amount of time, like maybe like 3 months, I always wonder like how transformed I could be if I like ate that food instead of like American food.
But we're kind of lucky like being here in New York, it's like I think New York is like kind of like its own thing like off from the rest of America, right? You could kind of consider them almost separate countries. Because like if you tell someone overseas like I'm American versus like I'm a New Yorker, totally different reactions.
I actually saw a TikTok on this. That,
did you?
Yeah, like Europeans react different when you say you're from New York versus like when you say you're from America.
It's true.
It's so funny.
It's true. Yeah, everyone loves New York.
Yeah,
but the
why
rest
is
of
that
America,
though?
I think for me, like because I think that for me, especially, like, because I was in Tokyo recently, like, right before I moved here, and I've been there many times, but it was, like, I thought it was really good to go from Tokyo straight to here, because, like, those are two cities that I quite enjoy, and I think that, like, as much as we complain about transit here and, like, all the other things, like, it's kind of comparable. Like it's not comparable. You couldn't compare them, but like the pros and cons are so different that I couldn't compare the two rather. And I think that there's just like an energy here and a chaos. I think that's commonly described like that. That you just can't get in other places. Like in Tokyo, like it's very orderly but everyone keeps themselves. They're in their own bubble. Like it's people are just very Germanic in that way of like just doing your job and then being efficient and stuff. Whereas here in New York, like Americans, like things are broken, so people are making their own decisions. And so I think that kind of chaotic energy and like all the things, like so much visual stimuli and stuff like that.
I love the chaotic energy because I'm the type of person who likes like how do I say this? Like organized chaos. Like I like it to be a little bit orderly, but like the chaos is like adds a little spice to it.
So I guess that's what it is.
No, I love it. So what do you think are some things that like Americans could or should adopt from Germany or from Europe?
I think that's discipline. Yeah, I think that maybe things wouldn't be so broken down and not working here if people just had the discipline to maintain things. Because whenever you don't maintain things, it builds up and then it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah, and then you just don't want to fix it anymore.
Right. So Germans are really good at being orderly, efficient, and following the rules, and that's probably why like things run better than some other places there. But here, like, things are broken all the time. Like there's like and you don't know why or when.
Yeah, it just is.
Yeah, like was it I went to like a subway stop and it was like yellow taped off and I was like confused. I like, is the train running or not? There's no sign. And I was like, I guess I'm just gonna go down, and the train was running.
Oh, what?
And I was like, all right, there are no rules here in New York.
That's so funny. Yeah, I feel like I always joke with my friends that like America is such a trash country because just like no one knows what they're doing like ever.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's just like, I mean, I guess that's like the fun of it, right? Like, you don't know what you're doing, so you're just doing. But also like sometimes it's nice to have like to know what's going on. Right? It's not nice to have, but it would be nice to have like.
And,
you know.
And I've definitely experienced that because, like, when I first came here, like, I hated it so much. Like, the chaos and everything. I'm like, this is so dumb. You know what I mean? But I was still in the mindset of, like, I know to be orderly. I'm going to continue being orderly. But eventually I realized, like, that is not working for me.
Yeah.
So then I just adopted the American mindset. I was like, do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And then everything was much better. So there was like a point where I actually had to deliberately, I was kind of stubbornly still in my German mentality. But whenever I finally decided, like, let me let this go, you know, and kind of adopt the American mentality, like, things really changed from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you mind speaking about, like, what changed or, like, what drove you to, like, make that mental change and then, like, what changed in your life? You don't have to answer this, but...
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. It kind of branched off to, like, more areas of my life than just, like, that specifically. And it's called, like, expectations, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of held on to expectations and you kind of set yourself up for disappointment.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I eventually learned, like, let's drop our expectations and just, like, have an open heart, open mind, right? And as soon as I did that, like, all areas of my life, I was able to accept
whatever happens
and find the appreciation in that and just, like, try to think more positively, you know? So that really helped a lot.
Does that... Because, you know, being an American, I've always had that mentality, just, like, whatever happens, happens. Because I've always had this mentality, I assume that, like, this mentality would work everywhere that I go. So you're saying that, like, having this open heart and open mind would not work in, like, I guess Germany or Europe?
Oh, no, it definitely would. So, like, you know, specifically what I was saying is that, like, I was holding on to my expectation of things being around like it is in Germany.
Okay.
But I'm in America, I'm not in Germany.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was more like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. I was like,
Yeah.
Okay, that makes so much sense. Okay, so I guess last question. One question before this last question about Germany. What made you decide to move over here?
It was my dad took a job over here. So my dad is originally from Jersey.
Oh, okay.
So he wanted to finally live near his family again. Because I had never lived on the East Coast, like I said.
Yeah.
And he moved away from the East Coast when he was like 18, 19, something like
That's
that.
young.
So he's like, I want to live near my family again. So he took a job here, like right before I turned 18. So I followed them. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like your whole life was like uprooted at like such a pivotal time.
It really was. It was pretty tough because, like, again, never lived here, really didn't know like the extended family or anything.
Yeah.
So it was very rough, I'd say.
Yeah, I can imagine like. I mean, even for me, like, I just moved here from LA, and, like, that's not even, like, the distance-wise, it's not even, like, comparable to, like, Germany, and I still feel like it's so hard. So I can't even imagine, like, you moving here at, like, 18, not knowing anyone. That's crazy.
I just became so, like, absorbed in myself and introverted and just, like, unwilling to, like, get to know these American people like that I don't understand. Yeah. So I definitely like kind of holed up and became like a hermit for like several years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was that hard. Like if I haven't emphasized like how difficult it was to adjust, it took some years.
That's crazy. So like what brought you out of like your shell finally? Aside from like I guess letting go of expectations.
I think it was I'm just doing like a lot of deep inner work, you know, because like whenever you look at it on the surface, like, you know, we said, oh, it's just expectations about here in America, not upbringing like Germany. But if you really go deeper, it kind of is beyond that. So I just had to, you know, address like a lot of things about myself. I think it's pretty common for people like in their 20s or whatever. You know, you feel lost for a bit, you know. So I was just doing that whole thing where like exploring and understanding the things that I'm really quite happy about, like my mentality or where I was at in life, and questioning why do I feel that way. So it was really just like that whole like self journey that like I just so happened to also be like, oh, I don't have to expect America to be Germany. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it all worked out.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
Yes.
It took a lot of work though. I feel like that like inner work is always like, it's always so much work. I feel like I'm always working on that.
Yeah, me too. And I don't think that it ever doesn't.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I think like one of the things is like I'm turning 30 next year, which is crazy for me to say.
Hell yeah, welcome.
And it's just crazy because like sometimes I still feel like I'm such a kid.
Yeah.
And I just like don't feel like an adult, and I'm like, I thought that like turning like okay like half of me is like really excited to turn 30 because I feel like people have their shit together at 30.
Yeah.
But then like I don't feel like I'm close to having my shit together. So then like I feel like this is something that I have to work on within like this 1 year, and I'm like stressing out.
You know, I know what you're saying. And something that helped me recently is because I thought the same thing, like, oh, when I turn this age, I gotta have my shit together, or I've done this kind of self-work, I should be good now, right? But what's the fun in that?
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, we are all kids still.
Yeah,
and like you probably noticed by now that like when you were younger, you thought the adults like had some kind of like godly like knowledge.
Yes.
But now you're almost 30 and you realize that actually no one, you know what I mean? So it actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, if you kind of just be like, oh, take the pressure off, and it's like, oh, I'm always evolving. I should always be evolving. So
that's true. Yeah. And I guess it's kind of comforting to know that like no one knows what they're doing, so you're not alone at the same time. They really don't know what they're doing. And something that I read very interesting recently, made a lot of sense. So it was like a Reddit post, and someone was complaining like, oh, my grandmother is like really like nasty to me, you know what I mean? Like, you know, why are some like older, like elderly people so cranky and mean? And someone said that it's probably because, you know, they didn't take the time to reflect back on their actual life and themselves. So now that they're at the end, they're bitter, regretful, and everything. So the fact that you are looking inward and noticing these things about yourself and wanting to improve, you're already ahead of some people who don't wait until the end of their life. Yeah. That makes me feel a lot better, but that also makes me feel sad for those people.
It is. But you know, it's never too late.
Yeah, that's true. It's never too late. That's definitely something I've learned the past year. It's never too late to do anything. So I love that. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you were interested in software engineering as a kid. So I'm like, how does that happen? Like as a child, I'm just like, I'm drawing cartoons. I'm not like software engineering, you know? Yeah,
this is like probably one of the things that like really tickles like a lot of my peers, like engineers and like just people in general. I got into the whole like software engineer career way earlier than all of these like tech bros, which is nothing wrong with being a tech bro.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I was in there before that was the thing. And the way that it happened is that when I was like 11 or 12, like I finally got the internet. And for some reason, so this is when the internet is really new, way before MySpace, Facebook, whatever. And like I just knew, I was like, I know what I'm going to use this for. And what I'm going to use it for is I'm going to download music, I'm going to look up anime, I'm going to look up video games. And that's exactly what I did. And then I saw like fan sites and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. I want to make my own.
Oh my God.
So then I figured out how to like view source on the website. And then I like broke down the code. And then like they had other like photo editing software back in the day. I don't remember what it was called. Paint Shop Pro, I think it was. So then I started designing my own websites. And then I was just like building so many websites constantly. And then I found like other people my age online who were also building websites. So we were like teaching each other. It's crazy because there was 2 other girls that I built a number of websites for. And it was cool because some of our websites like took off.
Oh, wow.
And today they're both engineers too.
What? That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So, that's how I got into it. And then when I turned 18, wasn't planning on going to college. I was kind of like a troubled kid, I mentioned I just moved from Germany and troubled, right?
Yeah.
Then I was like, I wonder if people would pay me to build websites.
Yeah.
Because it really wasn't like a job.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. And it turned out that, yes, they will.
Wow, amazing.
I found one of my first jobs with an agency through Craigslist.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so funny because Craigslist is so sketchy, but you find the craziest shit on there.
It's sketchy now, but back then, it was
legit.
It was legit, yeah. So I got my first job with a big agency. It's now an international company through Craigslist. Yeah, and then we got paid like crap for quite a few years, and then everyone got smartphones, and then the rest is history.
Oh
I was like, oh, this ended up being very good.
That's crazy.
And then it's funny because my parents used to always complain to me when I was younger, you're just on the computer. They didn't even understand what to use the internet for.
Yeah.
So I think they just thought I was lazy. They really got on to me.
Yeah.
And so we laugh about that now because they were like, oh, it's
so
a good
funny.
thing we let you be on the computer. Yeah.
That's so funny because I was doing the same thing in terms of designing. Okay, I was designing my MySpace, right? But
Nice.
you took it to level 1,000, creating websites. I'm all I know how to do is code this background and stuff. But that's crazy because I didn't go beyond MySpace, unfortunately. It was really fun though. I actually really like learning how to doing the codes and stuff. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and I think the people who learned from MySpace, that's very legitimate experience. You're definitely coding.
Dang.
Yeah.
I should have stuck with it. I think that was pretty good. Okay, so you mentioned that I guess you didn't want to go to college, or you didn't go to college, right?
Both. I was very bad in school. And this is kind of the interesting thing. I have a lot of opinions about traditional education. So I really did not like school. And I didn't do well at it. Because I couldn't freaking pay attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's too boring. Some of them is too abstract. So I think that a lot of people just didn't in terms of my educators and parents, they didn't really think I was gonna go anywhere. And they were probably thinking oh, she's just I don't know what to do with her. Yeah, so, because I was also, such a rebel.
Yeah,
So I think people were just done with me. So, I was just kind of beaten to my own drum, and I just immediately went to work.
Yeah, but that's crazy that you found, it just worked out so well for you. How does it feel being a woman in this, field?
Very interestingly, I feel fine. I don't feel I get discriminated against. Yeah, a little bit, but not really. One time I was on a plane, I think to Japan, and I was talking to some Canadian software engineer, and we were getting into the weeds, talking about technical things. And at one point he was just wait, hold on a second. He's it's tripping me out that I'm having a conversation with a woman about this. And I'm sure he meant
just
good things, but I was kind of okay.
Yeah.
What does my gender have to do with this, And I definitely in my earlier years noticed, and I don't think this is because I was a woman, I noticed that there's people who will buddy up, and you're never going to climb the ladder if you don't become a bulldozer of an advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that specifically is less about my gender, but otherwise I think that engineers are pretty chill people. I think that they're very just the way their brains work. When you're an engineer, someone can solve something. You can't really care about their gender or anything, right?
Yeah. As long as it gets solved.
Because some of these problems are really hard to solve, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of takes out this ability to dismiss someone because of their gender, because do you know the answer?
Yes or no?
Yeah, yes or no.
Okay, and that's amazing because I guess from someone who has no idea about software engineering, I just thought that you would face some kind of discrimination or challenges as a woman in the field, but I love hearing that you don't.
Yeah, I think I don't. Yeah, maybe other people with different personalities might, but
True.
personally,
maybe
no.
it just doesn't bother you.
It could be that too. I'm definitely not I'm not a very emotional person. Like, I definitely take things at face value and stuff, so maybe I don't find things to be upset about. Yeah.
Okay, so you touched on this a little bit, but I was wondering, like, since you didn't go to college, like, what are your thoughts on, like, the traditional, like, education system? And, like, you know, some people who still feel like college is, like, the way to go to get into, like, whatever career you're kind of trying to get into.
So, I noticed the difference between myself versus someone who could really benefit from college. I think that, so for me, like, I hustled so hard and I knew how to do the grunt work to get in, and the way I got into this industry is I worked for little pay, very little pay, but I knew that eventually that experience would pay off. And I noticed people straight out of college kind of have higher expectations. Sometimes, not typically. Maybe not typically, but I've noticed it. And they kind of expect that because they went to college, like, that they're going to get this out the gate.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of harmful because you paid so much money, right? Why wouldn't you come out of college and be able to get into the industry and go from there? But a lot of times I see that not really working out for quite a few people. So I think that the education industry is very, what's the word? They really take advantage of people.
I was just going to say it's a scam.
It is a scam. But I can see how some people need that guidance, but really shouldn't that guidance happen in our preliminary school? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we
definitely.
basically do nothing to, like, help people get ready for adulting.
No, like, I mean, I feel like even college doesn't get you ready. Like, college teaches you, like, the basics of what you need to get into the field, but it doesn't teach you, like, I guess, like, actual adulting, that, like, you, even though, like, you have this education, like, you should still do the work, in my opinion. It's like sometimes you just still have to put in the work. You know?
Yeah, very much so. So I think it's harmful.
Yeah.
I think it's been taken advantage of and transformed and capitalized. Like, it's not good.
Yeah. I always tell people I think college is a scam too, because, like, I don't even use the degree that I graduated with, and I'm like, I have loans I have to pay off for, like, what? For what reason?
I know that, and that's so often the case. Like, you hear people get their degree and they turn around and go back to school to get a different degree.
Yeah. It's terrible. College system is a scam.
But I would also say, like, because so many people go to college these days, like, I don't know what they're talking about when they talk about, like, college years and stuff. Like, so I feel like, not too strongly, but feel kind of a bit like I missed out because, like, what are you talking about?
Oh my God.
What are you talking about?
It's okay, you didn't miss out on much.
Like, credits? What?
I feel like collegers, like, the college years are, like, the years that, like, people, that's when they, like, get to move away from, like, home, right? They get to live their own life. It's kind of like their chance to rebel against what they always grew up with. And I feel like you mentioned you were always, like, a rebel anyway, so you probably already lived that experience without having to go to college.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, personally for me, that's what happened. Even though I still live at home, I commuted to college, but because I was, like, not home as often anymore, I was, like, doing crazy things that I was not doing before in high school.
I see.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that was, like, the only good thing that I took out of my college experience is, like, the friends that I made and, like, those rebellious experiences. But aside from that, actual school, like, education, like, with the work that I'm doing now, you, like, literally learn on the job. So it's, like, not something that you have to go to school for.
And that's, like, I really thought that they should take back or bring back, like, mentorships, right? That probably makes so much more sense.
Yes, definitely. But I feel like the thing is, like, depending on who you choose as your mentor, like, sometimes they're like, you have to be worth my time, right? And, like, you're not worth my time unless, like, you've attended this university or, like, you know, whatever. I feel like there's still a lot of, like, there's a word for this. I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a lot of, like, expectations of, like, what makes you worth the mentorship.
Yeah, that's so silly.
Yeah. I feel like people should just definitely help others.
I Yeah, I really agree with it. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like you saved yourself a lot of time and a lot of money not going to college.
Fortunately, it definitely probably made my parents like really worried. Actually, every decision I've made in my life like really made my parents really worried. But it was interesting because like we think so differently. I think that, you know, I've been in a really good place in my life like for a while, and I think that they kind of realized like, oh, there is different ways of being successful and getting somewhere, because like they're super conservative. I'm very much so not, and they're like, oh,
are they really like traditional?
Because my mom was like raised in like the country nowhere Korea, back when Korea was still a third world country, and my dad was raised by his grandparents, so a generation older than even himself. So they were very living safely. I definitely get that. I feel like because my family is also like, they're immigrants from Vietnam, back when it still kind of is third world country-ish, but so they're like super traditional, and they're like, I was also like a really not like super bad kid in high school, but I definitely didn't do that well in school, and I was like going out a lot, and they're like, I don't know what we're gonna do with you. They're like, are you even gonna go to college? Like, okay, first of all, yes, relax. I'll go to college for you, but oh, so you did more for family.
Yeah, it was definitely like not for me.
Oh,
but I mean, it's okay. I got like a lot of friends out of it, cool experiences. So
wow, I found out that I have a lot to relate to you actually. Yeah, we kind of like approached like life in similar ways in a number of areas.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You should hang out.
I'm down. I'm always down. Okay, so I feel like those are all the questions I had for you. Did you have any questions or like anything you wanted to add?
Let's see. Trial pole dancing.
I really want to. Okay, are you ever like teaching a class, or like do you just go to classes here?
I used to teach back in Maryland. I don't know if I'll plan to teach here, but if there's open pole sessions that we can go to, where if you'd like to go together and I could teach you, then I'm more than happy. It's a very positive community, you know, especially within America, it being associated with like sex work.
Yeah.
So no one's judging you. You know, everyone knows the struggle. Like, it's okay to feel intimidated and kind of like uneasy. Everyone goes through that, but no one is judging you.
Okay, I love that. That makes me feel a little bit better. So I'm definitely open to taking any classes with you. I love trying like new things. So
nice.
I'm excited.
Nice.
Okay. So the end of my at the end of all my podcasts, I ask my guests 3 questions. The first one is, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
The best advice that anyone's ever given me. Oh my gosh. I don't know if this is the best advice, but it is a very good piece of advice that I can think of right now. How to word it. I cannot recite the piece of advice, but it is related to having patience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it kind of like goes into like, it ties in with having expectations, right? You can gain more patience, like, you know, if you drop expectations.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, just know that, you know, everyone's the main character of their own life. So if you are not understanding, you know, someone else in your life, just remember that there's like they have their own whole life going on. So there's something going on that you're not aware of. So just like understanding and patience to people. That was not one singular piece of advice, but
no, it was very cohesive.
Yeah.
I like it. Also, like, surprisingly, something that I needed to hear, because I was literally talking to my friend the other day about like having patience and how I have no patience.
I see.
So it's crazy how you mentioned having patience.
Nice.
Okay, so second question. On the flip side what is the worst advice you've ever been given?
Whoa, worst advice.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, this one excites you so much more.
There's something. It didn't fully come to me, but it was on the tip of my brain. I think some of the worst advice that I can think of at the moment is avoid rocking the boat.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, avoid rocking the boats to keep the peace. It's a very bad idea. If you are finding yourself having to do something like that, you're just going to keep yourself in like a toxic situation probably.
Yeah.
So be true to yourself. You know, I mean, obviously, don't be like obnoxious and not care about anything anyone's going on. Yeah. But be true to yourself. Don't be afraid of rocking the boat in order to please other people or anything like that. If it turns out that whatever environment you're in is not working out, then don't be afraid of walking away.
Yeah. That's a good piece of advice. I feel like a lot of people usually stick to whatever they're going through or like that relationship or whatever because they're just afraid of like what's on the other side of it. But sometimes you gotta step away. Just, you know.
It is. We like get attached to like people and objects, but you gotta remember that like what's most important is this like not the object. We're attaching the way that we felt, like a good feeling to an object.
Yeah.
That it's not that. It's that feeling that you want. So, you know, if that's not working out for you, find a place that gives you that feeling, right? Yeah.
I love that. Good advice. Okay, last question. So, I don't know if you've ever read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
No.
Okay, well, it's a book about 7 habits of highly effective people, but there's an exercise in this book, and it tells you to think of yourself on your deathbed, and someone is reading your eulogy. And the point of this exercise is for you to think about how you want to live your life, right? And so the question is like, if someone was reading your eulogy, what would they be saying about you? This is a tough one. Usually, you could take your time on this.
I would say I would hope that someone would describe me as I definitely made sure I explored this life. Because that's my main point in life is I want to explore everything it has to offer. So
I love that. That's so funny because that's kind of like mine's too. It's crazy how we have so many similarities.
Yeah, we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah, it's crazy because like mine's is like I would want someone to say like I'm adventurous. I was always out there like doing whatever it is I wanted to do, no matter what anyone said. So crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Are we the same person?
Maybe.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Anyways, that is all I had. Thank you again so much for being on my podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had so much fun talking to you. Would love to have you on again sometime if you ever want to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay. Woo.